Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, Star Trek podcast. I'm Monica.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 8 of season 1 of Strange New Worlds, the Elysian Kingdom. Once upon a time, there was a doctor whose daughter was sick. And instead of letting her pass naturally, he decided to keep her as data in the ship called the Enterprise. And every so often, he would bring her out and read her a story from the book called The Kingdom of Elysium. And this episode is all about all of that going to hell. So let's talk about this episode. Monica, initial reactions.
I love that intro. It's kind of perfect. It's all a fairy tale.
Yes.
And I did not connect with this at all. I like my science fiction. I don't like to dabble into this other realm of fantasy. So I had a hard time with just connecting with this storyline. I appreciate the foreshadowing, and I was trying to follow along there. I think it's also because I did not like this episode. I know for sure because it wasn't really an away mission. Mm-hmm. And there was an alien being that came to the ship, but still there wasn't a journey to a undiscovered world. It was just a little different. It was very different, actually. What did you think about this episode?
I didn't like this episode either. I couldn't figure out what it was. One of the reasons I didn't like until you just said you don't like your fantasy and your sci-fi to mix. And that's what it was. This wasn't a good fantasy sci-fi mix. And granted, I don't think it was supposed to be, but that didn't help the case. Yeah. Because to see vines over the set of the ship did not really work for me. And like how it was very convoluted. I never really liked what the doctor was doing with his daughter anyway. I didn't like and agree with the decision of keeping her alive as data because he wasn't ready to let her go. So like anytime the episode sort of focuses on him and his daughter, I don't like it because it's very selfish in my mind of what he's doing. But like, I just don't connect with his character, and I didn't really connect with this episode. There were a few hidden gems, and so we might have to talk about literally just a few hidden gems that we saw. But for those who maybe are watching or just listening to this podcast, it's been a moment since you watched the episode. This episode is all about Dr. Mabenga's daughter's fairy tale story that he reads to her, taking over the ship and taking over all the characters of the Enterprise. Because they're in a nebula storm, it becomes where only he and one other person on the ship can retain their memory. It was a little funny seeing Captain Pike as like a little wimp. It was very interesting to see all the different characters. I will have to say I didn't like this version of Spock. Like, I never thought I would ever say that.
You miss the ears, don't you?
I do. There was a lot to this episode, but at the same time, there was like nothing to this episode.
Right. So I understand Dr. Mabenga's interest in kind of keeping his daughter a life support. Yeah. I feel like keeping her in the pattern buffer was potentially to delay the inevitable. Mm-hmm. He felt as though as a doctor, as a scientist, he could help find a cure. It wasn't until this episode that I found out that his wife passed away. I didn't know if she was just out on another science mission or something like that. But to hear about Deborah and that loss, to find out though that his daughter was able to kind of move on, that was the only like glimmer of hope I had in this episode. But I sympathize with him because he just wanted to keep a member of his family alive for as long as possible and to solve this. It just happened that this nebula had another idea that ended up helping.
I do want to say that I'm not so dead inside that I don't agree with the fact that he wants to save his daughter. I do agree with that. It's more about how he's doing it and the way that he's not taking into account what his daughter wants.
Right.
And that's the part that I have an issue with, because it seems like every time she's having fun or meeting someone, he shuts it down. And it's like, I understand that she can't be out of the pattern buffers for so long, but you could allow her to come into contact with other people. And it's like he's holding her hostage to just himself and what he needs. And that's what I don't agree with. Because
Right.
it's one thing if she's like, oh yeah, okay, keep me in the pattern buffer until like, you know, you find a cure for me. Okay, let's talk about this. Oh, it's great to talk to you guys again. But it's like he doesn't allow her to have a life outside of him.
Right.
And granted, yes, it's against the rules to have her on the ship. But when does Pike care about the rules? Let's be honest.
Right. And let's also face it, there's a lot of parents out there, I'm sure in that timeline, as well as this timeline, that's very protective of their kids, that create a bubble, whether it's social bubble or like a physical bubble around their kids, their family, so that they don't interact with others. And for his sake, it was on another extreme, but he was trying to be like the super dad.
Is the reason why they say it takes a village.
Yes, absolutely, I'm with you.
Because I feel like it seems more of a I can't let you go versus I don't want you to die. And it sucks. Either way, it sucks. Losing a family member. I can't even imagine losing a child. I've only lost a parent, and that sucks. So imagine losing a child. But I never really fully like, look, I don't think she agreed to this. And yes, she is a child, but this is still her quality of life that you're denying her for your quality of life. And that's, I was rooting that he found a cure based off of the other episode with the crazy people who sacrifice kids. I was hoping he found a cure off of that. I was really hoping, but it seems that this cure is something different. Another hidden gem in this episode is La'an. Homegirl can't sing. Homegirl is crazy. Homegirl is a spoiled little princess, and I love it. When she walks in, I had to pause the actual episode because I was laughing so much. I'm still laughing thinking about it, seeing her with her little Pooch. And
that was her real life dog. Like that was the actress's real dog. Like that wasn't a stage puppy. So yes, it was very cute. And Leanne mentioned back in like the second episode that she can't sing. That episode with the egg, when they had the like Spock and Deborah had to sing in unison. Yeah. She said, I'm not a singer. I can't sing. And she was right.
Yeah. She can't. It's awful. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. Another thing about this episode that was sort of interesting is that the bad guy isn't really the bad guy in this episode. The bad guy, which is the entity that turned this whole ship into a crazy little fairy tale, isn't really the bad guy because she is looking out for the child that I feel has been overlooked. So maybe I'm agreeing with the entity in this one. She made a point to say that she scanned the ship and saw the child and how lonely she was. And like, she's not sick when she's with me, so you have to leave her with me. I loved it because it made him have to actually put his daughter first. And not to say that he hasn't, but like to truly put her first in the sense of, I'm still going to lose you, but I'm going to lose you in a different way. And I'm okay with that because this is like, he finally let her make a choice for herself versus her body, her sickness, how she wanted to deal with it. And I liked that. I like the fact that the entity was like, I can give her better quality of life, but she has to stay here because if she leaves, she'll get sick again.
Right. It was a completely different solution than I think he could have ever conceived because this would only occur in this nebula. So he had to make this decision here. If they left, then his daughter would go back to like the former leukemia state. Here was his opportunity to make a choice, as you stated, to really allow his daughter to be immoral, to like set her free outside this pattern buffer, to have a real life and explore, travel, learn new things, and grow. And then to become, also to have a friend. And she was missing that. And I think that's why she connected with the first servant, because it was just another young kid that she could play with, just hopscotch, just basic.
Pour one out for the first servant.
Yeah.
My bad, dude.
Yes.
That was a horrible way to go.
Yes. If I was Dr. Mabenga, though, I would have asked Deborah a lot more questions, because it's a little tough to give up your child to this being that's not as scientific. Like, it's hard to pinpoint this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's giving up his, knowing what we know about First Servant and other evildoers in the galaxy and beyond. There's a lot of trust that you have to give to let your child go to this other entity and hope that everything works out okay. And he ended up trusting her and this whole system. And thank goodness she circled back and told him, I'm okay. And I've named my friend Deborah after my mom. It's like, oh, that's so sweet.
Rest in peace, Deborah.
Yes.
It's very interesting because the first time we get to see his daughter make a decision for herself in this entire episode is her decision to leave.
Like, well, or was it her decision to go to his quarters?
This was the first episode where, even including going to the court, it was the first time she really got to make a decision. I want to do this. And also, how you gonna let your daughter see where you live? Seriously, dude. Like, she couldn't be at the, like, how sick is she to the point where you can't risk the walk from the med bay to your quarters? And if she's that sick, why are you ever taking her out in the first place?
Well, first of all, he could just beam her there because she's in the pattern buffer. But the only thing I could think of is that, like, that was a quarantine state. Like, that room was quarantined for her leukemia to keep her safe. I don't know. That's how I justified it in my head. This whole thing's fantasy.
Because, like, seriously, if she's that sick, why are you ever taking her out in the first place? Why? Because if it's that serious to where you won't even let her leave the pattern, like that med room, then, like, do anything. Break any laws. Break any rules. It's like, you're already breaking one rule, keeping her there. What's another one to save her life? Like, dude, come on. Talk to number one. She's a mod. She could figure something out. There were literally so many options that he could have taken to save her life, because he's already breaking the rules having her there and the way that she is there. Number one could have definitely spirited her away back to her people and was like, zoop, 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 tune up, got the mod, you're not going to get sick no more. And I mean, granted, it was really beautiful to see her grow up, because he feared he was never going to see his daughter grow up. So it was great to see her in an older form.
Here's another problem with this whole storyline. How long was she really in that pattern buffer? Remember, when we started out this series, the Enterprise was undergoing repairs from that whole, like, end of season 2 of Discovery, like, all of that craziness and all of those shots fired. So was she also in the pattern buffer while the ship was under repairs? And, like, then they started these other missions. Like, how long has she been in this state, poor thing? So at least she's free and able to explore life now.
So many questions, not enough answers. So this whole half, we're going to talk about things that Monica liked, because as we know, I'm the one who's dead inside. So let's talk about the sets. What did you think? So
I thought it was interesting that, I'm just going to call the being from the nebula, Deborah, henceforward. So Deborah, like, changed the bridge so that there was, like, draped curtains in blue, and it just looked very rural, very Renaissance fair to me. So it was interesting that, like, that set change, you could tell it was still a bridge, but you could tell that it was transformed to this fairy tale scene. So they didn't just move to a whole completely new set to showcase this story. So I thought that was interesting. And then also the med bay changed. That had more of, like, a swampy feel, and there were like vines and different things like that growing around, and there was a forest, and the cargo bay changed to, like, a royal chamber. The place where they beam from, that became like a prison cell with the bars. So they changed different sets around. I know
the walls are closing in. I can't take it. Pike, seriously, you know that guy had fun playing that role. You know he had fun playing that role.
Yes, yes. And that's a whole other thing that I thought was interesting, and I liked seeing these characters in a completely different way, because this is a completely different Pike than I had ever dreamed I would see, because he was not brave. This Pike was not
honorable.
Yeah.
Was not trustworthy.
Not a leader, not anything that we've known. Complete opposite, actually. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting. Oh, and his hair was different because it's parted down the middle and downwards instead of.
We don't trust people with that haircut. We don't trust people.
And the draping that of the costumes. Leon's costume was beautiful. That grand like ball gown as a princess. Just everyone. Ortega's her costume was great, and her sword. I think just everyone just played their part well, like just completely transformed into this different character. And it looked like they just had lots of fun.
Okay, I'll say that. Yes, I can agree that it does look like they had fun recording this episode, regardless of the fact that this is probably them going back in time episode. Because there's always one where somehow some crew ends up back in time and has to start all over again or figure out a way back to the future. It felt like one of those for a moment.
Yeah. What do you think about Yohora's gown, her crown, her nails and jewelry? Yes.
I didn't like Uhura's. I'm sorry, people. I didn't really connect with the costumes in this episode. I guess if people are playing the opposites of who they are, maybe, because in my mind, Uhura does not scream evil queen. And so even seeing her, like, okay, I'm not scared of you, but okay.
I didn't like her crown. I didn't like that half crown thing that she had. I thought the gown was nice and the boots were on point. I thought the all the nails were distracting for me. I thought Patang, she portrays a much better princess though, but she was like a different type of princess though than Uhura in this realm.
Uhura was the queen.
Well, I mean, like in a royal kind of way. I didn't feel like she was as queen, like poised and like, but you could be an evil queen, but still have that mannerism of being, I don't know, regal, more powerful than everyone else. But I thought that the set was just beautifully changed, and it helped bring me into the story a little bit more.
See, that's sort of where I'm gonna have to differ, because I didn't like the set. I thought it looked tacky.
Yeah.
Because it didn't meld. I don't know, maybe if the computer looked a little bit more dirty. Because it seemed like they literally just hung vines over the actual set. And so it was like, if this is supposed to be like a fake kingdom, why does the computer still look brand new? Like, if it's supposed to be so overrun, it just didn't mesh well together. Like, and then also the fact that the entire whole book, the multiple kingdoms on the same ship, that part was a little confusing to me too, because like Dr. Mabenga is supposed to be a king, but there's also a queen, but La'an's a different type of princess, and then his daughter. There was just sort of like, La'an, where are your subjects? Because you're all on the same ship. I felt like she beamed in. And it's like, oh no, the Crimson Guard. Why are you afraid of them? You're the king, right? Oh, not on this. Okay, so there's more than one rule. There was just a lot to sort of follow story-wise. It just sort of seemed a little bit more Black Dash to me.
You know what I really wanted? I really wanted more of a non-European fantasy tale and story. Like, I felt like this Renaissance story was a little off for me for Mabenga's like fairy tale story that he would read to his daughter, and they would keep reading over and over and over again. I don't know. I've seen Renaissance just done so many times this is so far into the future and other cultures and civilizations. It would have just been nice if it was different type of fairy tale story and of other cultures. Another character.
I had the same thought. I did. Now it's like there's only 2 characters who could play everyone. And then it's just I feel like they had to go. I will say this. I do like that they made his king robe more of an African feel to it. I will say this. I did like that because I caught it too, where it's just like this is your daughter's story, probably because you picked it out for her. Why wouldn't you pick out something else? Because like really, we like parents introduce their kids to the things that they like. So it's like, why wouldn't you have picked a different? Because obviously I know where you're from based off your accent. I know where you're from.
Right.
Why wouldn't you buy, unless like your wife picked it up and we don't know what, like, well, we do know what race your wife is, but we don't know what culture your wife was. She could have been more Americanized. Who knows? But there's not enough Black people in this episode to do the story.
But they could have still, the scene that was set, the costumes could have been much more rich in other cultures.
They could have been different,
especially because leading into this transformation, the daughter asked for an alternate ending. Like she wanted to change the story a little bit. Like, oh, I don't like that part. Can we like change it? She mentioned that. So this is also a different chance to retell the story visually and with different costumes and different scenes, and then make it more Afrocentric. That's what I thought.
She's 8. She doesn't understand. I agree with you. I didn't get it at that age. I agree. There could have been more. And I feel also it sort of shows what she was introduced to as a child, because at that age, it's up to the parents to sort of start forming the world the way their kids see it when they're old enough to start understanding the differences, but seeing the cultural significance. But we find out at the end of the episode that when the Nebula gets the daughter and she is grown up again, and we see her in a little bit more of a traditional outfit, which I thought was pretty. Her outfit was really cute. We find out when everyone gets their memory back, no one remembers, and the Nebula wiped the security logs. And like, how is that not more of a red flag to like Starfleet? Why are there not Section 31 people on this like ship? Like, what happened? Like, how is no one remembering the last 5 hours? And then number one, you find out that someone does, and then you don't say, you can't sweep 5 hours of no one remembering anything under the rug in Starfleet. You can't. So how are you going to do that?
I don't know. It seems like they've done this a few times on us. Where, like, everything that happened to Michael doesn't exist anymore. Like, so I don't know. Maybe just like big gaps in the logs in the Starfleet database of time. And this is okay for them. It's not okay. It shouldn't be okay. It's interesting to me that the only person that's interviewing Dr. Mabenga about this was Una. Like, the security chief, Leanne, should be like, okay, we need to know more about what happened. You need to document every single second, and we need to like to get deeper to this and look at also that pattern buffer, like, and find out if there was any type of Trojan horses that were left behind.
All valid concerns and actions that should have been taken, or at least that we could see being taken. What do you think is next? So we have about like 2 more episodes before we're at the season finale. So what do you think is going to happen to because we've seen so far in this show, they have referred back to past episodes in the season. We see that with T'Pring showing up a couple times. We see that with the whole Dr. Mabenga's daughter. We see that with things I've been going, like La'an has stated about her past. So we know that while each episode is not really connected, there is an underlying overarching type of story, and we still don't know what's going to happen with Spock's brother. So what do you think is going to happen next?
Right. And don't forget the big overarching story, and that's Pike. And
yes,
and and how his character comes to term with knowing about his death. But I think this is going to be the last of the deeper dives into Mabenga, I think, because this is so much him in this episode. And I think we'll revisit him and his daughter next season. Yeah. So I hope they put this on a shelf and let's circle back another time. And let's stay in reality and probably revisit with the Gorn and Patang and Spock. But there's 2 episodes left, and they're probably going to string along the Spock and Patang for a while because they're engaged for at least 10 years.
So, like, I hope T'Pring, and I'm hoping we see more of T'Pring and Spock. I don't think we can solve Pike's issue this season. We're definitely not going to be able to solve it because we still have like 9 more years. I need Nurse Chapel to figure out her ish and leave Spock alone. And I really want to like Uhura by the end of this. I really do, because like she was one of my favorite characters, and I haven't really connected with her this season, like to where I care about her well-being.
One more character I'd like to learn more about, and that's Hemmer. We've learned a little bit gradually across the series, but he mentioned a few episodes ago that he did not like teamwork, and he was definitely part of the team this episode.
Against his will, though.
Yes, but that was the same thing with Uhura a few episodes ago. He didn't want to team up with her, but he had to. So I think it's interesting having someone non-human as a chief of engineer, also blind. I would like to learn more about him, contrary to Geordi that had to use a visor to help him see. Like, he's confident in his
but
ability.
He's also not human, though. So like for him, being blind is not the same as a human being blind.
Absolutely. And he developed other senses that helped tremendously with this fairy tale story.
Yes. Because we saw that when he was working with Uhura, he knew how to do everything on the pad. And like he couldn't see it, but like the way I guess his species is, he could still see it.
Right.
In his way.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if I like him yet, though. I
guess
dislike
what
him.
I was trying to mention is that he did not feel the need to have to use technology to overcome that. Like, he's just comfortable the way he is. I mean, he was chopping peppers without it. It's like, I don't need it. I'm good.
He's like, he's like, it's only a disability for humans.
Right.
Ouch. Burn. Burn right there. I don't know if you feel it, but I just got burned. Okay, well, thank you guys for listening. I hope that we didn't make anyone mad with our hate, or at least it's my hatred of this episode. I'm sorry, people. I really do love Star Trek, but I also believe I'm allowed to talk about things I don't like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, as always, I'm Andrea.
I'm Monica.
And live long and prosper.